So first, I'm going to give you just an overview. So this is an overview of what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about how much does it cost to go to grad school at the University of Houston, which that's a big question, but that's a question everybody needs the answer to. So we're going to talk about how you can find the answer to that question. We're also going to talk about completing your FAFSA, which is the single most important thing you can possibly do. And I will keep saying it over and over. So I want you to take that away today. Go ahead and write that one down too, FAFSA, do your FAFSA. And then we're going to talk about how you can fund graduate school and also financial literacy so that you'll know what you should do and how you should approach graduate school. So the big question everybody has in the beginning is, how much does it cost to go to the University of Houston? So there's a tuition calculator on the University of Houston's website. So when you go to the University of Houston's website, there's a search bar on the upper right hand of the website. Use that search. If you are ever thinking to yourself, I wonder how much the fees are, put it in that little search bar, because the University of Houston's website is so comprehensive and so good that you can find almost anything you were wondering about UH. You can actually find, just go to the search and you can find information. If you can't find the information, you're probably going to find the contact info for somebody who can provide the information. So use that search feature. It's really, really helpful. So to find out how much it costs to go to the University of Houston, use the search feature and put in how much is tuition. And it's going to bring you to this tuition calculator. From here, you're going to fill in these little drop-down boxes. And I put an example here that shows you what the boxes are. So you're going to put in if you're a resident or a non-resident, which college you're planning to attend, if you're living on campus or off campus, graduate level. If you're going to go to graduate school, you're going to choose graduate, and then how many hours you're planning to attend. And then hit calculate. This is going to, so don't write the check thinking this is going to be it, because it might vary a little bit, but I can tell you from this one right here, for the Graduate College of Social Work, which is what I've entered, for 9 credit hours, it was $4,154.67 this fall. So you can go off of that for the tuition and consolidated fees. And then the total was actually correct. It was on the high end, but that was the correct total. But just keep in mind, this is an estimate. So whatever college you are thinking about attending, that's what you enter your information for, because some of the colleges do have different tuition rates. So put in the college that you're thinking about attending, and you can get a really, really good idea. You can also go to their website and see how long is this program, because if the program is 36 hours, then you're going to have a total of 36 hours you're going to pay for. So then you're going to know that you can calculate that to see how much it would be. So, but your program could be longer. So if it's 48 hours and you want to know the total cost of your program, just keep that in mind when you're doing a calculation. So I've already mentioned the FAFSA once, and you will hear me mention this over and over and over because it is so, so important. You have to complete the FAFSA in order to qualify for any federal financial aid. It's a requirement. I will also briefly talk about the TASFA. So if anybody's wondering about the TASFA, we will touch on that as well. But for now, the FAFSA, you do have to be qualified to complete the FAFSA. So if you are qualified for it, you can go to studentaid.gov to see what the requirements are. But if you're a US citizen, you can probably do it. You need a social security number, and then you're probably qualified for it. Your parents may have filled this out when you were an undergrad, and so it could be new to you, and that's okay. The form is pretty, it's not too bad to fill out. It's easier than it used to be. They redid the form several years ago, so it's easier to fill out than it used to be, but just follow it step by step. You do not need to enter your parents' information if you're a graduate student. So that's going to be one of the big differences that you're going to see from being undergrad to graduate, because now you're no longer considered a dependent student, even if you're under the age where they say you're dependent. If you're a grad student, you're not a dependent student any longer. So the FAFSA opens up on October 1st. So this October 1st, really soon, it's going to open up for next fall. So you can complete that FAFSA on October. Get you way before the priority deadline. So you want to get in early because the priority deadline is January 15th to complete the FAFSA. That means some of the aid, you need to complete it by January 15th to qualify for that aid. So do it early. Our code is there, 003652. So if you're completing it, you can put that code in. But you can also search by university, so you don't need to. Just be careful when you're doing search by university because there are a lot of different University of Houstons and you want our campus. So if you choose, like, say, University of Houston Clear Lake, it's not going to be sent to our college campus. So just make sure that you choose University of Houston. You do need to complete it every academic year. So just remember, complete it every year, October 1st, and so you're ready for the upcoming. So we talked briefly already about being eligible for student aid. You do need to, for federal aid, you have to complete the FAFSA. That's the requirements. And then you have to demonstrate need for most programs. So your answers on your FAFSA are what's going to demonstrate the need. So you'll see after you complete the FAFSA, there'll be a cost of attendance and an expected family contribution. That's what the financial aid office uses to demonstrate financial need. You do need to be a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen and have a social security number. If you think that you might qualify for an exemption, you don't have the social security number, visit studentaid.gov because you can learn more about the requirements there, and there's also contact information. If you're a male between 18 and 25, you need to have registered for selective service. And you also will need to be enrolled or accepted in an eligible program as a regular student. So that means that if you're applying for, say you're applying for post-bac, you wouldn't qualify for graduate loans. That being said, that's to get aid. You don't have to be accepted or enrolled before you complete it. That's just, they can give you tentative aid, but you have to be enrolled and accepted before they can disperse any aid to you. You also need to be enrolled at least half-time to be eligible for direct loans. So for graduate students, if you're enrolled in 2-3 credit hour classes, you are eligible. And 9 credit hours is actually typically considered full-time for graduate students. You also must maintain satisfactory academic progress in college. So that's your SAP. So if you remember in undergrad, they said that you had to make sure that you were meeting your SAP. That's a percentage of courses that you enrolled and completed. You do have to do that in graduate school as well. And there may be other details as well. So you can visit studentaid.org for more details. It's a really, really great website to learn more. So there's different types of federal aid, and this is going to differ from undergraduate. So your federal aid is what you may be eligible for when you completed your FAFSA. So you may be eligible for federal loans. The difference is in undergrad, you may have gotten subsidized loans. In graduate school, there are no more subsidized loans. It's only unsubsidized loans, which means you will be paying interest as soon as that loan is dispersed. So just so you know that there is interest on the loans. They're published, so you can Google that and see what the current interest rate is, but there are no longer subsidized loans for graduate study. There are, well, in the max for a direct unsubsidized loan is also higher than it was for undergrad. So when you're a graduate student, the max loan, if you have the need, remember you have to have the need for the money. If you only have need for $10,000 per year, then that's all you'll be eligible for. But if you have need that's in excess of $20,500, you may qualify for the max amount of an unsubsidized loan. So that's $20,500 per year in graduate studies. If you're worried that you were close to your cap in undergrad for your overall cap in loans, that cap is different when you're a graduate student. So it's substantially higher as a graduate student that you'll have that cap in addition to your undergraduate loans. If the unsubsidized loan max of $20,500 does not fill the need that you have and you have a higher need, you can apply for a Direct Plus loan. For the Direct Plus loan, you have to qualify. That's a credit-based loan, so you will need to apply and qualify for it. Some people do use that for summer. I want to make a little note about summer. So when you get your financial aid from the University of Houston, the package that they give you is going to be for fall and spring. And so you can accept all the loans they offer you, even if you have the need for $20,500 and your tuition's $10,000, you could decide that you only want to take that $10,000 More of that will be offered to you in summer if you're taking summer classes. But if you take out that whole $20,500 for fall and spring, there may not be any aid offered to you for summer. So be very careful as a graduate student when you're planning out summer, if you need to take classes in summer, and keep in mind what your loan limits are, which is $20,500 for most of you. Keep that in mind when you take your financial aid for fall and spring and plan ahead for summer. If you have questions about that, definitely talk to financial aid to see exactly what they think that you should do, what your options are. So many students that run out of aid for summer will then request a PLUS loan, because a PLUS loan you can request later as well. So those are options. For grants, there is a Teach grant that's for teachers only, and that's a program that you have to follow. And if you don't follow the program and take the courses required, it does turn into a loan. You can read more about that online. And then the Pell Grant. Many students had the Pell Grant in undergrad. The Pell Grant is not given to graduate students unless you're in a certain post-bac or teaching program. So for most graduate students, a Pell Grant is not an option. And I know that's new for a lot of people because the Pell Grant is often given for undergrad students. It's really great need-based funding, but it's just not an option for federal aid for most graduate students. And then there's also work study. So there is federal work study that's based off of FAFSA. It is rare to get work study as a graduate student. If you didn't get work study and you applied really early, you submitted your FAFSA really early, I would say contact the financial aid office and see if there's any work study available. Sometimes you can get on a wait list and get work study as a graduate student. If you do take out loans, I just want to bring this up briefly. There is a loan forgiveness program. So the loan forgiveness program, it's if you're going into a qualifying field, which is a nonprofit, a government organization, or other programs that the federal government has deemed to qualify for the public service loan forgiveness program, you might be able to have your loans discharged and forgiven after you've made 120 qualifying payments. For that, I would say read studentaid.gov if that is your strategy for paying off student loans. Keep in mind that you have to make 120 qualifying payments, and you can't do those until you graduate. In case you're wondering, you can't get a head start on that. If you're in college, then those do not actually count if you make payments. So if you make 120 qualifying payments and you have qualified work, then you can ask for loan forgiveness. So that's a strategy some people in service majors do use. Keep in mind that this could change too, because this is a policy. And so there could be changes to the policy, but it's really good to read about and just to be aware of if you're thinking about going into this field and you're thinking about taking out student loans. So that was the FAFSA. Now we're going to talk about the TASFA. So the TASFA is for those who are not eligible for federal aid, but you are a resident of Texas, so you might be eligible for state aid. You might be able to complete the TASFA. You probably know if you're completing the TASFA instead of the FAFSA, you're probably aware of that from undergrad. So that you cannot complete both. So if you're eligible for the FAFSA, do not complete the TASFA, because the FAFSA, the federal aid, is usually, there's more aid available than there is state aid, which is going to be TASFA is state aid. So if you're not a citizen, you aren't qualified for federal aid. That's the requirement of the FAFSA. So the state of Texas then has the TASFA because you might qualify for state aid. That priority deadline is the exact same, January 15th. Good news on the TASFA is if you had previously submitted a TASFA in undergrad and it's been more than a year, it's actually changed and it's online now. It is easier to complete than it was before. So you can go online to complete that. But TASFA students, you may be eligible for the college access loan. You do need a cosigner, and you also might be eligible for institutional aid. There's a really great Texas Public Educational Grant that is for grad students too. So that's really great aid. And then TASFA students are eligible for the UH Graduate School Fund too. We'll talk about the Graduate School Fund in more detail in just a moment. So there's a lot of aid available outside of the federal aid. So we were just talking about federal aid related to your FAFSA. This is going to be aid that is not related to federal. but it is related to the FAFSA. So again, I stress, complete the FAFSA. I know it gets really annoying, but complete it, because some of that institutional aid, you have to complete the FAFSA to be able to be determined if you're eligible or not for the institutional aid. So complete that. But here we're going to go through different types of institutional aid, including fellowships, assistantships, and scholarships, tuition waivers, veterans benefits, external scholarships and funding, and also work benefits. So that's what we're going to talk about in just a moment. But first, we're going to start with institutional aid. So one of the sections where you can get aid at the University of Houston, there's fellowship opportunities. So for one of the fellowships that is very, very popular for our students, especially our PhD students, because you need to be either a PhD student or in the Doctor of Musical Arts or the Master of Fine Arts, is GTF, which is Graduate Tuition Fellowship. It's a competitive scholarship award usually granted in your admission decision letter, and it covers the cost of in-state tuition and mandatory fees. So GTF, that's mostly for PhD students, and then also DMA and then MFA. So that's one area where we have fellowships. And then we also have the Houston Endowment and Presidential Fellowships, and those are awarded to qualified doctoral students. You can read more about that on the Graduate School Funding website. So if you're a doctoral student, I would look at the Houston Endowment and the Presidential Fellowship as well as GTF. So look at both of those on the website to see if you think you might be eligible for those. And you can reach out to your colleges as well. There's also the Presidential Endowed Fellowships. There are about 12 different, and those are for their individual colleges. So you can see what the individual colleges have for Presidential Endowed Fellowships by looking at the same website, Graduate School Funding, the UH.edu/graduate school/graduate funding. You can read about the fellowships there. Keep in mind that one is also usually for PhD students. And then there's also the Paul and Daisy Soros Foundation Fellowship. You can read more about that one as well. Within the colleges that you are thinking of applying, there may be other fellowship opportunities as well. So look at your college website for scholarship and funding opportunities. See if there are any fellowships. Fellowships often come with either tuition or a stipend. So fellowships are good. The other that you'll see are graduate student assistantships. These are much sought after for graduate students. So there are different types. A teaching fellow, which that's going to be assignment by the college, a teaching assistant, instructional assistant, research assistant, graduate assistant, and then the graduate assistant non-exempt. So you will find these within colleges. The ones that are starred here, TA, IA, and RA, those are also qualified for an in-state tuition waiver. So that means if you're an out-of-state student and you have one of these 3 assignments for an assistantship, you then get in-state tuition. That's a big deal because out-of-state tuition is a lot more than in-state tuition. So those 3 assistantships do qualify for in-state tuition waivers. All of these assistantships also come with a monthly stipend. So they're typically 20-hour-a-week appointments, except for that last one that says graduate assistant non-exempt. That's not a 20-hour-a-week. So that one's determined by your assignment, and you're usually paid hourly for that one, whereas the other ones you're going to be paid monthly. And then you'll also get a stipend for health insurance is typically what's offered. These are really, really great. How you find out about these are through the college. So for colleges, they'll generally have their own hiring practices for these. So you'd want to reach out to your college or look at their website for scholarships and assistantships and see what their procedure is. And that's how you can find out about these. Next, we're going to talk about institutional scholarships, and Lila is going to take over from here. Lila, you're muted.
Yes, I just discovered that. Thank you. So let me share my screen now. All right. Thank you so much, Cindy. So now let's talk a little bit about scholarships. And you can hear me now, correct? I hope so. Great. Okay. So if you can demonstrate academic excellence, leadership, and or community involvement, you may qualify for a scholarship at the University of Houston. Scholarships may be awarded based on merit, financial need, diversity, and other considerations. Now, scholarships count as a financial resource when constructing a student award package. So when it comes to your student award package, keep in mind that the total student aid cannot exceed what your total cost of attendance is, or what we like to call the COA. And that COA is an estimate of what it costs for the typical student to attend the University of Houston. And that consists of tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. It is also important to keep in mind that the University of Houston awards are subject to change depending on the entire student award package and the student's COA, or again, the cost of attendance. So there are college scholarships out there, and there are many scholarship opportunities available for nearly every graduate or professional student available through your respective college or program that you're applying to. And we've listed some of the ones that are better known opportunities here at U of H. There's the Graduate School Fund, which Cindy alluded to earlier. Now, the Graduate School Fund, or the GSF, provides financial assistance for state of Texas resident graduate students who demonstrate financial need or apply to at the cost to, oh, I'm sorry, they're applied to the cost of tuition and the mandatory fees. Award amounts depend on the number of enrollment hours that you take, and the maximum award amount is $2,500. The FAFSA must be completed in order to be considered for this scholarship. So again, we're drilling into your heads: complete the FAFSA, complete the FAFSA, complete the FAFSA. Then the Graduate School's Stella L. Earhart Scholarship is a 2-year fellowship available to master students at the University of Houston. Selections for this scholarship are made by each respective college. The award amount is $1,200 annually, and for this particular scholarships, students who are non-residents or international will also qualify for a non-resident tuition waiver. And then finally, there at the bottom, you see the University of Houston Alumni Association. And it offers a list of or a variety of scholarship opportunities for students at all levels at varying amounts. So these are just a few of the scholarship opportunities available. For more information, there's the source down at the bottom of that particular slide. Let's see. Okay. Oops. Let me go back. Okay, let's talk about tuition waivers. Now, a tuition waiver is a cancellation of your tuition and fees associated with college education for qualifying students, and the University of Houston extends to students any waivers and exemptions for which they qualify. It's important to note that tuition waivers are rare and they're state of Texas mandated, meaning they're state of Texas specific. If you qualify for a waiver, you must submit required documents by the due dates on the U of H's website. The university reserves the right to evaluate each individual waiver and exemption for compliance with existing regulations and will base any decision on the merit of such a review. The most common waivers at University of Houston include those for blind and deaf students, highest ranking high school graduates, senior citizens, children of disabled firefighters and peace officers, children of prisoners of war or persons missing in action, and the Hazelwood, which we're going to talk about a little bit more on the next slide. Now, if you've ever served in the armed forces, this slide is especially for you. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, or Veterans Administration, administers education benefits covered under the GI Bill. In some cases, dependents of veterans may be eligible for benefits as well. Texas military veterans, specifically those who entered into active duty in Texas or were Texas residents at the time of entry, are fortunate to have use of one of the state-sponsored Hazelwood Act. This benefit provides eligible veterans, their spouses, and their dependent children up to 150 hours of tuition exemption. For more information about veteran educational benefits, please refer to the source at the bottom of this slide. And do not neglect to explore external scholarships and other funding sources that are available. This includes professional organizations, community resources. There's a lot of scholarship databases out there. And then there's other databases that are just available on the internet. So don't forget that Google is your friend. And also don't forget that there's service organizations such as Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, and Teach for America. And then also, don't forget, if you are working full time, you may have qualified for tuition reimbursement through your employer. So the thing to take away from this slide is to be proactive in your search for graduate school because there's a lot of information out there. Think of the University of Houston's website as a launching pad or a place to start. And again, Google, 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 and I'm going to say it again, FAFSA, FAFSA, FAFSA. All right, so after you have exhausted your scholarships, grants, assistantships, and the like, if there's still a shortfall that you need to be able to fund your graduate career, you may want to consider alternative loans. Alternative loans are credit-based consumer loans that can be used for any educational related purpose. They are private student loans provided by banks, credit unions, and other lenders that help bridge the gap between the financial aid you have already received and a total cost of tuition or attendance. Most loans require that the applicant must have an established credit history to be approved. The better your credit history is, the better chance you have of being approved of a loan and being approved at lower interest rates, which will save you money. With this being said, I would like to emphasize again how important it is to complete FAFSA early in order to make sure that you're awarded any aid that you may qualify for prior to accepting any loans that you may be offered as part of your student aid package. Remember that as part of your aid package, you could be offered those federal direct loans that we talked about a little bit earlier. And it's typically a good idea to look at those types of loans prior to considering those alternative loans. And it's always important to pay your bills on time in order to establish a good credit history over time. So with that being said, part of the roadmap of having a good credit history is to create a spending plan, better known as a budget, in order to help you make informed decisions about how to best allocate your money as you earn it. In relating this specifically to graduate school, we need to ask ourselves a series of questions to begin creating a spending plan that makes sense. We begin by asking what our expenses are, which includes both the costs of graduate school, tuition and fees, and then also your personal monthly expenses. Then we match this up with where our income or our funding is coming from. So we have those two bullet points there. So you see where it says, what are my expenses? And it has those two numbers underneath it. And then what are my income sources? And it has 3 possible funding sources there, which include scholarship, grants, and loans, other funding sources, and then work also. So in short, creating a spending plan will make it easier to control your expenses because you can see where your money is going. And also, financial literacy, since I am the financial literacy counselor here at University of Houston, and I forgot to put this on the slide, but I wanted to give you guys the website on the U of H website to get to me directly or to get to financial literacy directly. It is uh.edu, and that's /FIN-lit. So that's uh.edu/FIN-lit. So you can get in touch with me anytime and we can sit down and talk about what your spending plan is if you need help with that. So in summary, and I know we've gone over a lot of information and I see there's a lot of great questions in the chat, and we're going to get to those in just a second. But in summary, and we're going to say it again, complete the FAFSA as early as possible. The key dates are October the 1st and January the 15th. Begin exploring your funding options now and create a spending plan to reach your goals. Also, just wanted to put together a slide that has all of the resources on it from all of the previous slides. I would say the most important one here, or my favorite one here, is the 4th one where it says uh.edu graduate school graduate funding, because that is a launching pad for everything that Cindy and I have talked about in today's presentation practically, because it'll give you a gateway to go to each one of your colleges, to go to the calculator that she started out with earlier, and to look at all of the different areas that we've discussed today. So with that being said, we're nearing the end here, so we can open it up to questions. And I see that we have some questions in the chat area.
Yeah, I can definitely help ask those on behalf. So thank you everyone who asked your questions. So the first question, and I just want to acknowledge I have my video off because my internet, I keep getting notifications my internet is unstable. So if for some reason you can't hear me, just let me know. But the first question is, if the desired graduate program starts in the summer, would we have to complete the 2020-2021 FAFSA or 21 to 22? So for which academic year would you complete it if your program's in the summer?
Both. Do the 2020 to 2021 right now, because that's for summer. So the academic year goes until August. So you're going to want to do the 2020 to 2021 right away, like as soon as we end. And then I would do the 2021 to 2022. I would do that October 1st then. So for you, the answer would be do both, but do the 2021 first, like now. That was a great question.
We have a couple of questions for students who are out of state. One was, if someone's not from Houston, are there any scholarships available for housing?
So housing is actually, that's going to be part of your cost of attendance. So when you do your FAFSA, it's going to ask you a question. It's going to say, where do you plan on living? And you'll answer either on campus, off campus, or other. I think the other is actually living with parents. So then it calculates like an amount, the university, the federal, it's a federal amount. It'll add that into your cost of attendance. So your cost of attendance has a built-in amount that you have a need for housing. So then you're trying to meet that need with aid. So in a way, yes, there is, but it's all built in together. They don't break it out. There is a way that you can actually see the breakout too when you're a student, and after they've done all your financial aid, you can actually see the breakout of that cost of attendance too. Just ask financial aid to show you how to do it, because it's a little hidden on your MyUH website, but you will be able to see it. There's also a question about in-state waivers, which seems really related to that too. UH does offer in-state waivers, in-state tuition waivers. So you can get those by either being one of the assistantships that comes with an in-state tuition waiver, or if you get a scholarship that is a competitive scholarship that's at least $1,000 a year, then you can get an in-state tuition waiver, meaning that you pay what a Texas state resident would pay. But UH does offer those. So if you're out of state, that is definitely a goal, is to get in-state tuition. In many colleges, you can find in-state tuition opportunities.
All right, thank you. There was another question earlier about FAFSA. So someone mentioned they've always done their FAFSA by themselves and have just submitted their old files. So this year, would they need to complete a new FAFSA for graduate school?
Log into that one again, because you don't want to put all your personal information back in. So log into that one, and then you're going to come up to a question where it'll say, do you want to enter your parents' information? You do not. Just hit no, because then you get to bypass all that. And it is not necessary for you as a graduate student to enter their information. It is totally optional at that point. But yes, do log in and use your old one, because then you can, it's easier if you log in and use your old one, and a lot of that's going to be preset.
Yeah, very helpful. Our last question we have so far is, someone asked, if I work at U of H, would that be considered an organization that would qualify for the PSLF?
It is, yes. It is definitely an organization that could be qualified. I would say go read the qualifications, because I do know some UH employees who have not, their loans were not the right loan for the loan forgiveness. So I would say go read that first and make sure that you have all the qualifications. But UH is one of the employers that is qualified. So if you're here and you're making 10 years worth of payments, and you can break that up. So say you've already done some of it and then you go to grad school and then you're going to do others, you can do that. But you can't do the payments while you're working here. So you'll want to kind of take a break on those if that's your goal, and then resume it after you finish your graduate program. Also, I mean, if you do work at UH, I would definitely say pursue the scholarship that you can get, because there's a scholarship for employees, for staff, that is $2,000 a semester, and you have to apply for it before every semester. Go onto the University of Houston's website and get on that mailing list, because they'll send you an email when that application opens. It's a really short application, and then you might get the $2,000. And I'm a graduate student. I'm staff, but I am in a program in the evening, and I've been very successful at getting the $2,000 even in the summer. So definitely take a look at that if you're a staff member. You do have to be here for at least 6 months to a year, depending on your position.
Great advice. And there's another question that just came in. Is there any additional advice for an undergraduate to start preparing for graduate school funding? Besides FAFSA, of course.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, go to the graduate schools page. There's the graduate college here. They have a page where they have all these databases on the bottom of the page. So we've put the link in there, and go to that part of the UH website. There's so it's the graduate college, and then there's a little tab that says funding graduate school. Click that. Like, there are so many resources on that page. Go to the bottom, you will find databases. It's great. If you're an undergraduate here at the University of Houston and you have My UH access, I would say to check out and see if you have an icon that's called Scholarship Universe. That's only for current UH students, and it's in My UH. It's one of those little icons like Blackboard, but there's one that says Scholarship Universe. If you're a current student, I would say go there and start exploring Scholarship Universe and see if there's anything interesting there. But that's only for current students.
Thanks, Cindy. So another question just came in. So for the scholarships for the Graduate School Fund fellowships and other scholarships offered by UH, is there any additional application for those things, or will you be put in the pool once you apply?
So most of them there are. The Graduate School Fund is done off of your FAFSA, so you don't have to apply for the Graduate School Fund. Be very careful that you submit your FAFSA by May 1st of the year of which you're going to be attending every year, because that is a really great fund that varies between $2,500 and $5,000, but you have to have your FAFSA in before May of the year before you're attending. So like if you're attending this fall, you had to have it done just this past May, so 5 months ago. I know that's way after what I keep saying, so just do it October 1st and then you're qualified to be considered for that. So that one you will not need to do another application other than FAFSA. For the fellowships, most of those you have to have the FAFSA on file or the TASFA. If you can't submit either one of those, then it's different, because fellowships are for international students. So that is not to discourage an international student from a fellowship, but if you can fill them out, they expect you to, and then they'll tell you you have to. So the fellowships are usually, so assistantships do have a different application. Fellowships are usually assigned, but you'd have to reach out for your individual college to make sure on that. And that's usually at the time where you're getting admitted that you'll find out about fellowships. For other scholarships offered by UH, so there's two different sites. There's the UH Foundation scholarships, that's one place. UH Alumni Scholarships is another, but then also your college. So look at your college's website and see if your college has a scholarship application. Most colleges do, and it's going to be a separate application with a separate deadline. So make sure you complete that too. Often when you're admitted to UH, they'll put the link for that in your admission letter too. So, but if you can't find that, I would say email the college that you're applying to and say, do you have a separate scholarship application? And can you send me the link? And can you get more than scholarship from UH? I think that means, can you get more than one scholarship? And yes, you can. And you can also get like the graduate school fund in addition to scholarships. So, okay, good. That answered that question. So you certainly can get more than one scholarship. And then you can also get the graduate school fund in addition to scholarships. You can get the graduate school fund up until the amount of your cost of that you have need, up to the limit of $5,000 for a full-time graduate school student. I will say on the graduate school fund, the one stipulation that is really key is that you have to be a Texas resident. The graduate school fund is funded by means that require that you have to be a Texas resident to get that fund. So if you're an out-of-state student, unfortunately, you would not be qualified for the graduate school funds. But Texas residents, it is need-based, so you have to have need for that one, which is why they want the FAFSA. And then also you have to apply with your FAFSA before May 1st. Hopefully that answered that.
Thank you all for your questions, and thank you to our presenters too for sharing information. We still have some time. If there's other questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. Give everyone a few minutes to think of their questions. We also have a quick survey just to let us know how this session was for you. And so I will share that in the chat as well. So you can take a couple minutes to complete that before you head out today. But please feel free to ask any questions as you have them. So Cindy and Lila, there is a question. So I only fill out TASFA if I'm not eligible for FAFSA. And then someone asked if you could talk a little bit about the tuition waiver for staff as well.
Yeah, so the TASFA, there are requirements to fill out the TASFA. So I think we put the link on the slide. If not, just Google TASFA to see what the requirements are to fill out the TASFA. But if you're eligible, so how it goes is if you're eligible for the FAFSA, fill that out. If you're not, and you're eligible for the TASFA, then fill out the TASFA. There will be some international students that aren't eligible for either one. So FAFSA, then TASFA, and then there isn't another one after that. So that would be the answer to that. But that's not to say that if you're not eligible to fill out either one of those, you are still eligible for some funding here and for fellowship. So I don't want, and GTF, which is what pays for doctoral and other students. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. That does not mean that you are not eligible for any aid if you can't fill out either of those. For the tuition waiver for staff, so what they offer here is the $2,000 per semester. So that's it's on the website. I can get it in just a minute too and share it with you. And sign up for their little email, because they'll send you an email as soon as it opens, and then you complete the application for that. It's up to $2,000, but it is $2,000 a semester. That's what's been awarded for the last couple of years. As long as you're in a program, then most people do get, and you're a staff member that's been here for 6 months to 1 year, depending on the position, then most people do get it if they ask for it. So make sure you ask for it, because I've known a couple of people that just forgot to apply for it, and that is super disappointing, because you might get it. So yeah, but $2,000 a semester, and there is no cap on that. So you can just keep asking for it, and it is for summer as well. So you could get up to $6,000 a year for your staff. Oh, wow, that's a tough question. Okay, so I was just reading somebody's question about promotes their graduate school promotes not working throughout the program. So, but yeah, so you have to eat. I mean, we do have a collaboration with the Houston Food Bank, but there's other issues as well too. So that's completely understandable. I don't know what college it is. You're welcome to say if you want, but some colleges, when they don't want you, unless it's the law school, they're very specific, but some colleges, when they say you can't work full-time, graduate assistant jobs still might work. So I will say that So I'm with the Graduate College of Social Work, and our full-time students, we do tell them, do not try to work a full-time job. And I will completely stand by that. It is not possible, and we are setting you up for failure, so don't do it. So for that, I do say look for a grad assistantship position or think about the part-time program, because it's just too many credit hours and too much field work. So if your college is saying it, they probably have seen people do it and it didn't work. So I would say listen to your college and see what they suggest, or look to see if they have a part-time option. I know we have a part-time option that's really great for working individuals. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, it's just tough because it asks for a lot of like hours, like field hours. So like while I'm learning, I have to complete in 2 years like 2,000 hours at like clinics and stuff. And so that's why they say like, well, you're gonna like go to class and then you have to go to your site. So that's why they're like, well, you can't really work. But I'm like, well, I don't have family here, so I kind of have to work.
Yeah. So I mean, we have a similar issue in our college. And it is 2000 is a lot. I mean, there's no sugarcoating that. That's a lot of hours when you break it down to how many weeks you're expected to do it. So what we tell everybody is, it's kind of like what Lila just said with making a budget, but we're like, budget your time. So sit down and just make yourself a calendar and see like, when am I expected to be in college? And when am I expected to be doing my practicum or my field work? And then give yourself some time to be like a normal person too. Like, you're going to have things that you need or want to do, and do not fail to account for those, because the last thing you want to do is not self-care and completely fill all that time. So be very careful on that, and see how many hours you have left. Don't forget to let yourself sleep, things like that. Put in your travel time too. And then see what you think you reasonably have time for. You might be able to get super creative and find a grad assistantship or another position that has online where you can do it at weird hours, or maybe more flexibility. That might be an option. For you, I would also say pursue every single source of funding you possibly can, because if you could get more funding, then you've got less work that you feel like you need to do to be able to live. Yeah. And UH does have a lot of resources. We have a great collaboration with the Houston Food Bank for our students. And the students I know that have gone to it have raved about it. It is really, really good. So take advantage of every opportunity you can as a student. They are good, and that's what they're there for. Because we would rather you be able to work less and be able to do your studies than to have to go to work to make sure that you can eat. So yeah, that was a really great question. You've put a lot of thought into it, so that's good. Yes, you sure can. Yeah, so the FAFSA actually goes off the year before. So when you're filling it out now for the one that opens October 1st for fall 2021, that one is going to use your taxes from 2019. So if you were employed then, you would use it. If you were not, you still fill it out. That is totally acceptable and fine, and not everybody is employed. There's a lot of students that'll come right from undergrad and go into graduate school, and they haven't been employed. So that is totally fine, and fill it out, and that may work in your favor. So also, and I don't know if anybody asked this, but as I tell you that it's from 2019, you may be thinking, well, my situation has changed vastly since 2019. I was working in 2019 and I was making a good amount of money, and now I'm going to grad school because of COVID, which that is a situation that a lot of people are facing right now. You are going to have to fill it out with your 2019 taxes. There's no way around it. You're going to have to do it. But then after you've completed, you can go to the financial aid office, and there's a form that you can complete because of a change in circumstances. So definitely reach out to financial aid if your circumstances have changed vastly since 2019 and it is not in your favor. If you're working now and you weren't in 2019, that's fine. You do not have to do a change. But yeah, just keep that in mind if you have had experienced job loss and you're turning in a FAFSA with a job that you no longer have.
These are great questions. So thank you all who are attending for asking these questions. I think it's so helpful for us to learn and hear from each other too. since we are about at 3 o'clock, I just want to be respectful of everyone's time and just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this session. Thank you so much to our presenters for being here and sharing this information with us. Again, this will be recorded and available on our YouTube channel. And we would love to get your feedback and hear more about what was helpful for you. So please check out that link in the chat, give us some feedback and let us know. Oh, thank you so much, Cindy. So Cindy shared her contact information as well, so you can reach out. But I just want to give a big thank you to Cindy and Lila. So thank you so much for sharing and taking time to be with us today. So y'all are welcome to leave when you're ready, and appreciate you all being here. And Lila has her information as well. Thank you, Lila.
Thanks everyone for coming.
And Cindy and Lila, I will kind of hold back if you want to wait. You can just kind of debrief if you'd like and just check in together. Looks like it's just us.
Yeah.
So I'll stop recording.